We need to push awareness about this because if ever there's been a time to be very, very careful when purchasing land or property along the seacoast, it is definitely now. Whenever Margaret and I take people to go look at properties along the seacoast in southern Maine, York County, we assume that because of the nature of the storms getting more fierce in the last 3 years, that these homes, especially right along the seacoast, have taken on some damage. In this video, we're going to talk about all of that, and we're going to get after it right now. Although I travel to the seacoast nearly every day for real estate, I sold our beach house about 6 years ago. I now live about 10 miles inland, but my experiences and the video footage I'm sharing with you will help you come up to speed quickly on the things you absolutely need to know about. Sometimes the repairs needed are so great, the towns will not let people move back in. And whether it's flooding, wave damage, or driving rain, water entering a home can lead to mold, which probably won't kill you, but it can make you really sick with flu-like symptoms. And you know, you can't always smell it or see it. I'm going to share with you the warning signs, how to find them, and most importantly, whether it is still a good investment to buy that property. I'm also going to share with you some of the telltale signs of what I look for when considering a waterfront investment along the seacoast. These properties are still going up in value and can be a great place to invest your money. But it has never been more risky to buy along the seacoast in Maine due to the much more extreme tides and weather patterns that we are now seeing on a regular basis. And more water damage means more repairs, which can include mold remediation. If you're new to this channel, my name is Michael Patterson. My daughter is Margaret. Our family lived oceanfront in southern Maine for over 10 years. And we have seen the changes that Mother Nature is bringing to the seacoast. If you haven't already done so, you might want to subscribe to this channel as we post videos on what it's like to live in southern Maine, from terrible storms to fun activities. We are local realtors here in York County, and I have decades of experience buying, selling, and flipping houses. And I've helped other investors do it as well. More importantly, for this video, Margaret and I have been eyewitnesses to the routine destruction that is happening along the seacoast in southern Maine. I was woken up dozens of times as massive waves struck our seawall and shook our home. I've seen seawalls destroyed that not only decimated the house, but also lead to heavy damage on the neighbor's property as well. It isn't enough to have a strong seawall. Your neighbor's seawall needs to be strong as well, because that can impact your property. When buying properties on the seacoast in Maine or any other state today, you have to be careful and know what to look for because flooding and mold issues are on the rise. That being said, there are still some great buys out there, but if you don't choose carefully, it will cost you dearly in regular remediation and worse, the stress it will bring to the relationships in your life, and it will not be worth it. Several times while I lived on the beach during storms, my wife would pack us up and have us travel back to our second home until the storm was gone. I've seen many homeowners who have lived on the seacoast for over 20 years finally come to terms with the fact that they have to tear down their home and rebuild, or worse, sell the house that's been in the family for several decades. And sometimes it is the town that makes them do it. When you visit these seacoast areas in Maine, it will probably be on a reasonably calm day and the real estate will be tempting, but if you don't know what to look for when buying one of these properties, you could end up trying to sell it in a couple of years, hoping that someone else who didn't do their homework will take it off your hands. As investors and licensed realtors here in Maine, Margaret and I suggest you consider the following when you tour a property on the seacoast. The first is the location. If the property is on the beach, there isn't a house in York or Cumberland County that hasn't witnessed extreme sand erosion in the past 10 years. Now, some of the erosion is seasonal, which means they could be losing 4 to 8 feet of sand every winter, and most, if not all, of the sand returns every summer. But the loss of sand is getting worse because every year, less sand returns over time on average. You need to understand that properties on or near the ocean receive rain horizontally, which means greater pressure on the windows. I know a lot of people don't like them, but casement windows are a better choice when living on the ocean because when the wind blows, it pushes the window sash against the window seals, which means a tighter seal against water coming in. These homes see this kind of driving rain several times per year, and once the water gets in, it could sit there for weeks, leading to mold in the floors, walls, and ceiling. This is because as many as half the homes that are oceanfront in Maine are vacant for most of the year. And if you don't believe me, here's how you can verify this. Talk to the neighbors. And this means you may have to make several calls. Ideally, you can find a neighbor that has lived on the beach in that area for more than 10 years and ask them how the beach has changed in the last 10 years. You should also share with them which house you are looking to buy. They almost always will share with you stories of what has been happening in that neighborhood and with that specific house, with the flooding and weather in recent years. Oftentimes, they can provide you with information on every home around them. And if they can't, find another neighbor. Don't rely on the selling agent to list everything in the property disclosure about flood damage. Most will list everything, but they can only share with you what they learned from the current property owner who may not have thought to share everything. If the property owner doesn't share flood damage information, it probably won't end up in the property disclosure. I want to take a moment and tell you about some of the free resources we have made available in the description down below. The relocation guide allows you to compare all of the towns in York County, Maine, and the seller's success guide helps you prioritize what needs to be done and what can wait when selling your home. You'll find links to these resources in the description down below. Second, I recommend that you visit the property at high tide. I showed a beach house earlier this year, and the buyer didn't even notice the puddles in the street from the high tide. They thought it was from the recent rain. Today, high tides and rough seas bring damage to many beach homes along the seacoast on a regular basis. I'm talking about porches getting ripped off and doors being pushed in by the waves. The mitigation from these events is often not done correctly, and that can lead to structure issues and mold. Like I said, most of these homes aren't lived in for most of the year, so the mold often goes undiscovered for months. In our area along the seacoast, you can expect the waves to grow to over 10 feet every winter, and for most properties along the seacoast, this means extreme wave action that will likely shake the property, causing stress cracks in the drywall, and it can even wash out lawns on a yearly basis. This means you have to budget for yearly storm repairs that will easily reach several thousands of dollars every year. If the property you are looking at is across the street from the homes that are oceanfront, pay attention to the water level in the marsh at high tide. Walk around the property and look for evidence of flooding. This can be found by looking for watermarks on the siding or lattice work. If the property has a crawl space underneath it, look for standing water, or if it has a basement, look for watermarks around the basement walls, and check the base of the lally columns for rust marks. Water underneath the house can lead to mold, which can make you sick and cost you thousands of dollars to remediate. The good news is that you probably won't die, but the symptoms will make you miserable. Third, the listing agent should include the FEMA flood information in the listing documents, but Margaret and I do not rely on it. FEMA maps won't tell you that certain roads completely flood over several times per year due to flooding caused by climate change. They don't tell you that some homes are completely surrounded by water up to the front door several times per year. Sometimes YouTube can be a better source for learning about regular flooding than FEMA maps, which are certainly helpful, but not your only source for flooding information. Asking the neighbors if flooding ever covers the roads is a great question. Fourth, how many times has the property changed hands in the last 5 years? Your real estate agent can find this out for you. If it keeps getting flipped, flooding could be a problem. The property could still be a great deal to purchase, but wouldn't you want to know this? Keep in mind that some towns keep track of repairs on coastal properties and will make you lift or rebuild a home once a certain percent of the structure's value has been spent on the property. If the prior owners already hit the threshold, you'll have a house you can't use until you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to either lift it up or tear it down and rebuild. Fifth is smell. We've all smelt a musty home. On the ocean, I get to smell it all the time. Remember, these houses on the ocean are sitting for most of the year with no one in them. If you walk into a property and you can smell that familiar musty smell, I suspect mold right away, either in the floor or in the walls. Mold can be covered up with fresh paint, but that doesn't make it go away. If you walk into an old home and smell fresh paint, I can't help but suspect foul play. I'm not saying they're covering up the mold problem. I'm just saying that when I smell heavy air fresheners or fresh paint, I lift an eyebrow and look for mold in the basement, attic, and in the closets. Please give this video a thumbs up if you found it informative. And if you want to watch a great video on how owners of properties on Wells Beach are preparing their homes for another season of bad winter weather, watch this next video.